Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'll tell you what, I'm going to start with this. I don't normally do this, but I will this time. I'm going to take a little victory lap on this one. I just happened to be passing by Steve Bannon's show, The War Room, on the evening of Saturday, and he was talking with a young guest of his, about Israel and Netanyahu, and how, of course, Netanyahu is not liked by at least 61+% of the people who live there in Israel. And massive protests, of course, have taken to the streets. The individuals in Israel want a ceasefire. They want peace. They don't want people in Gaza to die anymore. They want the genocide there to stop. They know that a genocide has been happening. And then he says the following. He says, basically, as a result of Donald Trump's negotiations with Middle Eastern countries regarding the Gaza Strip, getting the war stopped, getting Netanyahu's assault to stop, basically anywhere and everywhere, and then funding that particular region of the Gaza Strip to, again, have all of these other Arab countries also fund it to clean it up and then make it inhabitable for Palestinians, basically makes the Greater Israel Project dead in the water. Steve Bannon openly said this on his show, to which I put both my hands in the air and I went, wait a minute, I've been saying that here on the show for a very long time. And again, it's 100% accurate. Those Middle Eastern countries don't like Netanyahu in the slightest. Donald Trump doesn't like him either. Donald Trump even took a picture from the anti-Netanyahu rally that took place in Tel Aviv. He took a picture of the basically a bird's eye view of the crowd that was there, and then again posted it on his Truth account. He's not doing that because he likes Netanyahu. He's doing it because he hates his guts. He knows his role in 9/11. He knows exactly what he did. Most of the American public doesn't like Netanyahu. Most of the world doesn't like Netanyahu. The Middle Eastern countries don't like him either. Again, this is all good exposure. The tables have completely turned here. Again, in that room, when Netanyahu apparently was here in Washington, or certainly in New York after his UN speech a couple weeks back, he openly, again, was meeting with members of the American media. As it turns out, these so-called influencers were all communists. They were all left-wing. All of them. There weren't right-wing individuals in that room. These people came from the Washington Post, the New York Times, you name it. It wasn't sort of your average bunch of ragtag individuals on X. These were all left-wing journalists that he was, again, lecturing on how the individuals like, of course, me, for example, and anybody else, certainly individuals with larger accounts and larger followings, those individuals, again, need to be shut down. And that the censorship, of course, has to ramp up. So I think it's a fantastic thing. Again, go for it. Try to censor us as much as you want. It hasn't worked in the past. He's going to have to flat out work with these companies to delete accounts. Most of these people pay to have those accounts in place. And again, people get to say what they want to say in this country. He doesn't like that. Too bad. He thinks that everybody, again, needs to just believe everything that he says and agree with him all the time and follow him and do as he says and whatever else. And if they don't, then they're somehow anti-Semitic or whatever. Fine. He gets to believe whatever he wants. That's not going to stop people like me or anybody else from saying what needs to be said. So again, Netanyahu's time here is coming to an end. He's still under corruption charges. He's still being prosecuted. This is a good thing. And again, the vast majority of his own people in that particular area of the world do not like him. You go outside of that, again, his support dwindles to zero. So he can make all the threats he wants, again, like his UN speech. We have bigger plans for even countries in the Middle East and outside of Israel, and we're going to keep moving and we're going to keep pushing forward. I mean, hell, when he got done meeting with Trump, he immediately started bombing Gaza again. Those videos are already out there and they're brand new. So again, all these threats that even Donald Trump is seemingly making toward Hamas, he knows that Netanyahu funds Hamas. So when he says something like, we're going to take the gloves off, we're going to do this, we're going to do that if the bombing doesn't stop, or if the, so-called whatever hostages don't come back and all this other nonsense, I think he's actually talking to Netanyahu. And I think, again, the pressure on Netanyahu is going to get larger and larger and larger. And then eventually, this country is going to turn on him, and certainly this country's leadership is going to turn on him in a way that's never happened before. And he's going to be left out to dry. That's my prediction. Again, I think that's a good thing. So I just wanted to make mention of that. Steve Bannon openly said it. The Greater Israel Project is dead in the water, and it most certainly is. Anybody thinks that Netanyahu or Israel or the Israeli government are going to expand into Egypt or Turkey or Iran or Syria more than they already have, or Saudi Arabia, they're dreaming. There's no way that happens. Again, they would need our money. They would need our money. They would need our equipment. And why would those Middle Eastern countries and Donald Trump allow that to happen? That would be like us declaring war on the Middle East. We're not going to do that. That wasn't the entire purpose of Donald Trump's Middle Eastern push over there. Not to mention, it wasn't the entire approach of his first term when he went over there and he was doing the sword dancing and he was doing all of that. Again, all of those countries were working with Donald Trump. And you have to know that behind the scenes in those meetings, they were basically saying, hey, look, we know that Israel's the problem. We know that Zionism is the problem. We know that Netanyahu's the problem. So what do we do here? Let's elbow him out. Let's take away as much influence of him and from him as humanly possible, or the influence he thinks that he has, and then we'll just squeeze him out, and we'll make him irrelevant. Perfect. They've already done it. It's already happened, and now Steve Bannon sees it, and he's openly talking about it, and that's a good thing. Again, if he's got people listening to his show, and they're saying things like, well, Netanyahu's a good guy, and, chosen people this, and greatest ally that, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, if people are listening to his show and they're hearing him say, Greater Israel Project's dead in the water, I mean, they're getting a cold bucket of water tossed right in their lap. And again, that's a good wake-up moment for them. Good for them. They need to hear that because they are not our ally. Never have been. Still aren't. All of it's just Schofield Bible nonsense. So again, just wanted to kind of pat myself on the back there a little bit and just kind of mention that because it's becoming more mainstream, which is a good thing. There is, unfortunately, however, this. And again, it could be being done, I suppose, for a variety of reasons, but let's just take it at face value. You had Kash Patel the other day. He was openly giving an interview on stage, being interviewed by some unknown black individual who I don't know. They were sitting in separate chairs, and he was asked questions about the Charlie Kirk event and online censorship and whatever. And Kash Patel openly said that he's interested in going after accounts that question the Charlie Kirk narrative. That basically all these so-called conspiracy theories about what happened to Charlie, and then he goes, I was friends with Charlie, and there's an ongoing investigation, but these accounts that are saying all of these conspiratorial things, they need to be silenced, and this, that, and the other. Again, it's a bad look. If he thinks again that mentioning that, and certainly mentioning censorship, in this day and age, is a good idea, it's not. If he thinks it's politically expedient for one reason or another, it isn't. If he, again, is doing it because it's multidimensional chess and it's reverse psychology, and he's basically, again, bringing it up because he thinks that doing it would deflect certain individuals from taking a particular stance in one direction or another, and again, then he openly leans back and he says, but there's an ongoing investigation, and again, he was my friend, and we're looking into all impossible angles, and this, that, and the other. I mean, again, this entire Charlie Kirk story is slipping through their fingers. You even had, again, Alex Jones. I saw this on X. Alex Jones had a Navy SEAL, ex-Navy SEAL guy on his show, and he was openly saying that this entire thing regarding Charlie Kirk is not what we're being shown. And he specifically honed in on, now he was being careful about his words. He wasn't saying it was fake, which it clearly was. He wasn't saying outright that that was the case. But he was saying things like, just look at the three guys who are on top of Charlie once Charlie falls out of the chair or tips over in the chair. He goes, they're smiling and they're not covered in blood. And this ex-Navy SEAL's like, I've shot people and I've been on top of people who have been shot. When you're tending to someone who has been shot, you are covered in blood. If that person is bleeding, then so are you. And then he shows, of course, the zoom in of the footage and the hand gestures, and not just the hand gestures, but the objects or seeming objects that are being passed from one person's hands to another. And he's zooming in on the hands and he's going, there's no blood on these guys' hands. If they're touching Charlie and they're tending to a wound, which they would have to be doing in a real shooting, then they would be covered in blood. But there's not a single drop of blood anywhere. Again, this was interesting because it's been how long since that particular fake shooting? It's been almost a month. And it's taken Alex Jones that long to have a guest on his show that basically, again, hones in on something very specific that is very unusual. He also, of course, says there's no blood behind the individual at all. There's an entire white screen or whatever it is, a white tarp with Turning Point USA logos on the back, and there isn't any blood on any of that either. And then he hones in on the camera. Why was the camera right behind Charlie taken and basically confiscated? Of course, the so-called CEO or one of the producers of Charlie Kirk's podcast or whatever said that, well, all the SIM cards were taken out and they were given to the FBI, and that's exactly what they have, and they're looking into it and whatever else. Sorry, no one believes you. No one believes you. I mean, there are unfortunately a lot of people who do, but these are not critical thinkers. These are not people who can remove their emotion out of a situation and objectively, again, look at the entire situation as an actual crime scene, which is what it's supposed to be. No autopsy, no ballistic forensic investigation. There's nothing. Absolutely nothing. We're just supposed to believe a director of the FBI when they say, well, we're investigating it. Okay. We don't believe you. I mean, because we can see what's going on. The question, of course, then becomes why. Why was it all staged the way that it was? Again, was it Masonic? Was it a Masonic ritual? Was it done to introduce and give government more leverage to go after Antifa and to continue to enter into these cities and, again, label Antifa a domestic terrorist organization? I mean, it's all highly possible. All of those different angles are possible. But more and more people are waking up to this, including, again, the individuals who immediately came out of the gate and were like, Charlie's dead, what an outrage. No, even they're changing their minds. Again, the more time that you let pass on events like this, the more evidence comes out. The emotional part of the brain starts to slow, and then people, again, they either, they rest on their first conclusion without any evidence, and they just say, well, what I felt and what I saw and what I felt I saw is exactly what ended up happening, and that's the way that it is. Or they go back and they re-examine all of the facts pertaining to the case with less emotion involved. And then before you know it, their eyes start to open a little bit and they start to see things a little more clearly. And I think that that's happening. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So again, it's unfortunate that a lot of these individuals, again, still believe this. But I think Turning Point USA is about as irrelevant now as it's probably ever been. Again, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Again, individuals that have to make tours on college campuses all of the time talking about Christianity and freedom. I mean, these individuals are grifters because Jesus Christ wouldn't want that, I don't think. He wouldn't want these individuals using his name to deceive people in order to receive money, while again deceiving them, as I just said, and trick them into believing that somebody's dead when in fact they're not. That's demonic, and it's dishonest. So this is, it's unfortunately the world we live in, but that's the way that it goes. Now, again, with that said, there's a great deal of other things, of course, that are taking place that are absolutely fantastic. I love all of the news coming out of Portland. And I also, by the way, love all of the stuff coming out of Central and South America. The simple fact, again, that we're going after the cartels, and we're not just bombing a couple of boats. That's what we're being shown, but there's far more intense things taking place that are not being caught on camera. And again, I think that the domestic arrests that are taking place are not only purposeful, and I don't think it's a script. I do believe that it's actually real. I think that these detention centers are real. Again, I've seen some videos of individuals. Again, they're claiming that the entire thing is a constant script, like the Rambo and Friends guys, and News Treason again over there on Rumble. They're openly discussing again how some of these so-called trailers, as they're sort of manufactured to look very dramatic regarding some of these ICE raids and some of these gang-related raids that are taking place in Chicago and Memphis and Portland and cities across the United States, that it's all staged. That some of these individuals in this footage are in fact actors. I don't believe that. I don't think that that's the case. I think that that's very real. I just think, again, that there's such manpower that's involved in all of it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having a person with a couple of cameras and a drone taking video footage of all of this and then splicing it together and then again throwing it up on X for people to see. I think that's a good thing. I think it empowers American people to see that law enforcement's actually doing what they're supposed to do to get rid of the riffraff. So I don't think it's a movie. I don't think that they're movie trailers like a movie production would be. I think it's actually happening. But what I will say, again, is I have no doubt that what's taking place domestically might be used to distract from what's going on internationally, and vice versa. I mean, you can wag the dog from both angles if you really wanted to, again, to basically just give individuals a little taste of both without exposing them to everything and showing them everything that's taking place, for example, like in Venezuela. I bet there's way more going on there than what we're being told. Not to mention, if you think about what Donald Trump has said in the past, he's openly told the media, look, I'm not going to project what I'm going to do. I'm not going to tell you what we're going to do and where we're going to go and how we're going to, go about it. Some of the things he's openly projected, and then he'll pump fake. We're going into Chicago, and then he goes into Memphis. We're going to Chicago, and then he goes into Portland. They've been in Chicago the whole time. They've been arresting people in Chicago the whole time. And the simple fact, again, that you've got all these citizens, and it's not many, but it's enough, rioting or throwing rocks at federal agents and throwing rocks at federal vehicles. I mean, these people are crazy. Because, again, illegal aliens and individuals who, again, have been brought up on criminal charges, not just for being an illegal alien, but, of course, for moving drugs, guns, human trafficking, child trafficking, you name it, rape, murder, the whole thing. These individuals are being caught. They're walking around with government-issued cell phones by our own government. Government-issued debit cards by our own government. And they were even flown in here. Again, so all of this, they all came from the southern border stuff. No, they came in through Canada also. They came in through shipping containers in California, New York, and all the way up and down the East Coast as well. And some of them just hitched a ride on a plane. Flew right into Michigan, flew right into Ohio, flew right into Iowa, flew right into wherever. Minneapolis, they're everywhere. But they're being gotten rid of, and that's a very good thing. There was this particular post on greatawakening.win that I thought was rather entertaining. Figured I'd just read it here and, I don't know, give you a little taste of what this individual thinks, and who knows, just a little food for thought. They said the following here, quote, "So check out the plan as I see things." And then they have 10 action phases listed here. It says Action Phase 1. ICE operations ramp up immediately upon stepping into office. This removes the most dangerous and volatile illegal immigrants and cartel-affiliated ultra-dangerous criminals first. Action Phase 2. Media predictably kicks off a frenzied campaign of hysterics. In response to ICE operations, Antifa is activated to protest ICE and hinder their operations by any means necessary. Of course, the full weight of the federal government can bulldoze right through this easily, but the goal isn't to use the Insurrection Act yet. The goal is to use ICE facilities as bait. With media freaking out about ICE and Antifa directing all their attention to ICE, they can also engage Phase 3. Then it says Action Phase 3. Keep arresting Antifa members, one by one, and pick rioters off over the course of a few weeks to months, drawing all the attention to ICE facilities, which are the most well-guarded, so that small businesses and private residents don't get trashed and burned. Who is going to run out of money and manpower first, Antifa or the feds? You don't need the Insurrection Act to protect federal buildings, and all the Antifa shock troops are showing up there of their own volition right now. Action Phase 4. It says, while all of this is going on, you're securing necessary court rulings to have stronger legal backing for mass layoffs of entirely corrupt departments, and firing people left and right, and cutting the strings on all of the immoral and unlawful black projects weaponized against the American people, and installing non-corrupt people in their place. Action Phase 5. In the background, you're also interrogating the hell out of all of these Antifa members you're rounding up, who are mostly overly eager, idealistic, college-age people who are way too soft to stomach the thought of actually serving 20 years in prison. These people are going to be squealing and crying for mommy and daddy within days of being in custody and making any plea deals they can scramble for, pointing the fingers up the food chain at all of the organizers. And I'll tell you something, I saw a video on X of that very thing happening. There was a particular guy being interviewed out on the street by a citizen journalist, and he's got a mask on and everything, and he's not Antifa, but he's openly saying that all of these protesters, that they're all meeting in one place. They mention the guy's place where they're all meeting, who owns that particular place or that apartment, what they do inside of that apartment, that they use drugs, they get paid to protest, they're sleeping there, they're doing the whole thing. I mean, this guy's saying all of this on camera. That's solid evidence, which means a couple of doors are going to have to get kicked down, I think. Not a bad thing. The next one, Action Phase 6. You're also investigating all the financials of all the organizations any of these people are shown to be affiliated with during this time, and where all that money comes from. Action Phase 7. Once you've spent a few months rounding up the most dangerous illegal aliens and picking off Antifa agitators at a steady rate as they pick fights against ICE and around ICE facilities, then you've severely depleted their amount of shock troops in a war of attrition without ever even invoking the Insurrection Act. I think it's been invoked, it's been selectively used, I'll put it that way. It's been written and it's been signed, I think, and enacted. It's not necessarily being used to the weight that it could be used. They went on and they said they've totally cut off the funding, and now they're just grinding them down and picking people off in a war of attrition that the feds will obviously win. Action Phase 8. Once all of the high-profile bad actors are fired and are no longer in official positions of power, no longer have security clearances, no longer have any means of funding because the government purse strings have been cut, all their finances have been audited for funding terrorism, and they have no shock troops for backup because they're all deported or crying and squealing on them in jail, then the fun begins. Action Phase 9. RICO charges are unveiled, and the whole organization, including Antifa leadership, corrupt government officials, corrupt NGOs that have been backing terrorism, the whole thing is taken down at the macro level. And then it says Action Phase 10. In conclusion, America is great again, time to party. Unquote. It makes sense to a great extent. It truly does. You can wear these people out a little at a time. Again, chess is being played. These people have lost. They don't know it. It doesn't matter what move they make. They've already lost, but they're being forced to make moves anyway. They're being forced to continue to play the game. And every time that they do, they just get caught. In fact, a perfect visual of this, almost from like an actual battlefield sort of, I guess, war standpoint, is if you look at that Portland, Oregon ICE detention center, and how, again, the ICE agents will all line up, and then the protesters will come up to them, not to their noses quite yet, but they almost come up to them. And they keep shouting, and they keep doing this and keep doing all kinds of things. Eventually, those ICE agents get an order where it says, now run after them. And then they do. And they all bum rush them. And when they bum rush them, all the Antifa people, they immediately turn around and they try to run away as fast as they can, but they're not very quick. So a couple of them fall to the ground, and then they detain those individuals. They arrest them and they haul them inside, and they question them. And then they'll back up. And then they'll go right back to where they originally started. And the Antifa people, because they're stupid, they don't go home, lick their wounds, and say, you know what, I should probably not do this because I'm going to get detained and this isn't a good idea. I mean, they don't do that. They just literally stand there and continue to do the thing that caused the ICE agents to bum rush them the first time. And then they end up having it done to them again. And then it just keeps happening time and time and time again. These are not the sharpest knives in the drawer. You can manipulate these people and move them around this so-called chessboard as much as humanly possible, because they'll keep making the same move that gets them in trouble every single time. And it works. It's perfect. One of the moves, again, that's basically occurring behind the scenes, and it'll make a headline, of course, and one was, of course, occurred last week, with the FBI openly saying that they are disassociating now and not affiliating themselves with anything having to do with the Anti-Defamation League. That was the first move. Rather important. They, of course, have now done the exact same thing with the Southern Poverty Law Center. That they're no longer affiliating with them, any of their lawyers, any of their employees, and they've disassociated as well. That's also a good thing. Again, these moves being made are purposeful, and the timing is not an accident. You can, again, use the fog of war, so to speak, to get a lot of other things done, I think, and it just sort of slides under the radar, and it doesn't become a huge news issue. Again, I don't watch Fox News, so I have no idea if they even covered the fact that the ADL is no longer basically being, supported by the FBI and vice versa. That's rather interesting. Same thing again with the Southern Poverty Law Center. These are radical communist organizations because they were designed to be. But them, again, not being affiliated with the FBI, of course, is fantastic. Just one of many examples, or two of many examples, rather. So there you go. Again, just very quickly there, geopolitically, I think what's going on is fantastic. I have no reason to believe otherwise. Not to mention, of course, the government shutdown continues to go on, and that's been going on now for at least 5 days, coming up on 6 days here. October 10th will be the 10th day that the shutdown has actually been in effect, and wouldn't it be interesting, again, if on that 10th day, all of a sudden the government is back in session, so to speak. 10 days of darkness, again, referenced in Q posts or theorized about and what that might mean, but this has been interesting. And it is true. I mean, you try to get on some of these government websites and you try to file papers, or you try to see, again, if you can get certain legal advice on this, that, or the other, and, their websites openly state that you can't submit particular paperwork or particular forms because the government's shut down and whatever else. Again, they're cleaning house. They're trimming the fat. This is what has to happen. Too many employed. Just far too many. There's also, of course, been talk about sometime in the future, potentially the next, 6 to 8 to 9 months, Donald Trump working out some kind of a deal with the Treasury where Americans get $1,000 to $2,000 checks, or a $1,000 to $2,000 check, rather, on a one-time occasion, allegedly. I know that's been theorized about for quite some time, certainly back when Doge was doing what they're doing. And I have no reason to believe that Doge is done by any stretch of the imagination. But they're finding money all over the place. And we're saving money, again, by cutting these individuals' salaries. I mean, that money can be certainly more well spent, certainly in the hands of Americans, because theoretically it's their money to begin with. Again, whether that's to stimulate the economy or get out of debt or whatever the cause may be, or what the use of that money may be by the individual family is up to them, but it wouldn't be a bad thing. think everybody's entitled to have some of their tax dollars back in their hands. It's been stolen from them in the first place. Now, speaking of that, certainly from a taxpayer waste standpoint, as I brought up, I believe, last week, and I'll keep bringing it up because these stories continue to build on themselves, basically, but more and more of these data centers are being found across the United States and are being shut down. And it's, again, these are data centers that don't have human beings actually operating them. They are set up by human beings, but they are used, again, to hack into computer systems. They are used to make robocalls, certainly anonymous text threads and anonymous threats, certainly to American K-12 schools, colleges, and universities, and everywhere else. This was from ABC News, having to do with that original story from last week, kind of building on top of it, and it says the following here, quote, "A thwarted plot to cripple the telecommunications system in New York was bigger than investigators first realized, adding to the urgency of their search for answers," sources told ABC News. Federal agents discovered additional locations and more equipment as they worked to determine the ultimate goal of what the United States Secret Service said was a China-linked plot that could have crippled every cell tower in the nation's largest city, jammed 911 calls, and unleashed chaos on communications networks. It says agents from Homeland Security investigations found an additional 20,000 SIM cards. I'm sorry, I can read. 200,000 SIM cards, there we go, at a location in New Jersey, law enforcement sources told ABC News. That's double the 100,000 SIM cards, along with hundreds of servers that were recently seized at 5 other vacant offices and apartments in and around the city. Investigators secured each of these locations, seized their electronics, and are now trying to track down who rented the space and filled them with shelves full of gear capable of sending 30 million anonymous text messages every minute, overloading communications and blacking out cellular service in a city that relies on it for emergency response and counterterrorism, unquote. These exist all over the nation. All over the nation. And many of these, as one might expect, are on timers. And they're set to send out a particular message or very similar messages in very similar wording to endless K-12 schools and universities at a time of the programmer's choosing. And then in typical fashion, local law enforcement and the local university and or K-12 school, whatever environment, they have to, of course, react to all of these particular robocalls and these so-called threats. They have to call local law enforcement, say, we just received this threat, what should we do? They tell them to lock everything down, send out another text message to all of the people who are tapped into your local text message emergency line and all of that. And then all of those people start to panic, shelter in place. There's a shooter on campus when there's not. There's a bomb threat when there really isn't. Back and forth, back and forth. Again, it's wag the dog, and then you're getting, again, yanked around by the collar every single time that one of these so-called events takes place. Only government and government facilities are really impacted by this kind of manipulation and this kind of technological sabotage. But again, it's not some kid down the street who's sad that his dog ate his homework because he doesn't like his school teacher and he doesn't want to go to school tomorrow. That's not where these calls are coming from. They're all coordinated, and this is exactly how it gets done. So again, don't think for a minute that it's just New York City or it's just New Jersey. This is probably in every county, certainly the larger ones and the ones that have, again, larger cities affiliated with them throughout the entire United States. Now, there's also this, and this was tossed to me by a listener of the show, and thank you for sending it my way. They know who they are. Our local sheriff here in Butler County, Ohio, Richard Jones, he took to his TikTok account the other day, and I've criticized Richard Jones, and rightfully so, certainly regarding the COVID shots in the past and a number of other things, but I voted for the guy. I have voted for him in the past. Again, he's tough on illegal aliens, which is great. I love that. That's great. He was weak on the COVID shots. He thinks Israel's our greatest ally. That's too bad. But either way, he's hard on illegal aliens. And there are a bunch in this county. Again, we are the county north of Cincinnati. And, fortunately, there are less of them around, which is a good thing. And they are housing a great deal of them in the Butler County Jail, which is good. And then, of course, they're holding them for ICE, and then they hand them over to ICE, and then out they go. In this particular 8-minute presentation that he gives, he openly calls out Oxford, Ohio, the town where I live, and calls them a sanctuary city and says they're a problem too. He's also 100% right. The city council in the town where I live, again, they're more concerned about affordable housing for homeless and illegal aliens than they are actually fixing the roads. And just again, doing away with all their pet project bullshit that they're always engaged in, that no one uses, let alone gives a damn about. But I want to play this audio because, again, I like the fact that he calls out the town where I live, and he's 100% right. Now, what Oxford doesn't seem to understand is that when the DOJ gets word, that, which they have to already, why would Richard Jones not tell them, that Oxford, Ohio, again, and certainly the state AG's office, is not complying with any sanctuary city, whatever you want to call it, restrictions, in that they can't be a sanctuary city, not legally, and that, again, theoretically, they've been outlawed throughout the nation, and that you can have federal funds withheld and state funds withheld as a result. Well, that should mean that Oxford shouldn't get any money anymore until they do away with all their sanctuary city policies and all their sanctuary city bullshit. Again, in this upcoming election, the only people running for city council are communists. The only ones. They're the only people. You just have, again, your choice. Is it a black communist or a Jewish communist? Who are you going to vote for? That's it. There's approximately 28,000 people who live in this town, with or without students, who attend Miami University. The vast majority of the people who live in this town do not vote for city council members. They just don't. A city council member might get 1,500 votes. That means, again, that the vast majority don't like them. But, again, the choices are awful because they're all communists. And, again, they get on these city councils, and instead of doging the place and firing people and saving money and doing away with these pet projects and all this other nonsense, they always feel like they have to have their fingers in everything. And it never benefits the actual people who live in this town. It never does. We need a bike path. We need a walking path. We need this. We need that. No, you don't. No one uses them anyway. Fix the roads. Repave the roads. That's all that has to happen. Get the fluoride out of the water. Stop poisoning people. Again, some of the people who take these, it's the vast majority, I should say, the people who take these particular positions in these elected positions like city council, they just love meetings. They're all communists and they love meetings. And then they meet to have meetings about meetings. And can we have more meetings? And maybe we should create another committee so we can have more meetings because we love meetings. They have nothing else. Their lives are useless. They really are. It's embarrassing. Their lives are useless. They actually do nothing. The vast majority of the people around here detest them, and they're fine with it. This is the ruling over the ashes part of Marxism that they just love. But with all of that said, here's Richard Jones, Butler County Sheriff, cowboy hat and mustache and all, in 3, 2, 1.
How's everybody doing today? I'm Sheriff Rick Jones from the Butler County Sheriff's Office in Butler County, Ohio. I'm here today to tell everybody to give an update on our status as far as holding illegal aliens in our jail. We're one of the biggest holders of illegal aliens in the United States, one of the very largest. And I'm going to give you an update on what that consists of. Here in Butler County, in the last probably 2 months, 8 weeks, we've detained our deputies, along with other law enforcement in Butler County. Close to 100 illegal aliens have been incarcerated with our deputies and with ICE in Butler County. Our deputies have the authority to detain and stop somebody, and if it's determined that they're here illegally, we can make those determinations, and they can be transported to our jail and booked in under ICE and ICE charges. I have 10 deputies that are certified and trained in that. I've got 10 in the process to be trained. 4 of those 10 additional are already in the process. And when I'm done with that, there's going to be 20 more. Then there'll be 20 more. And then there'll be 20 more. This is going to be nonstop. This is what our country voted for. This is what the president wants done. President of the United States is still nothing compared to what President Obama deported. He deported more, far more than President Trump. It's just the process. You need to know the truth. That is the truth. In our jail today, like I told you, we've detained 100 just in the past 6, 7, 8 weeks here in Butler County. In our jail today, Butler County today, we have close to 400 illegal aliens in our jail. The turnaround time for their deportation is usually 4 weeks. That's up to ICE. They make that determination. They bring them in, they get them out. So in the United States, I think it's up to 50,000 jail beds they have. The feds do for illegal aliens in the United States. 50,000. It was 30. They've got it up to 50. With that, there has to be a quick turnaround. The turnaround is roughly 4 weeks. In our jail here in Butler County, in the last 8 months, total ICE detainees in and deported is close to 2,000. I want to repeat that. That's close to 2,000 that have been in and that are gone back to the country where they come from. This is a very safe place to be in Butler County. We're not a sanctuary county. We have a city up in Oxford within our county, a college town. They're sanctuary. And so that's the only place that I'm aware of in Butler County. But I also want you to realize that this is a very safe place to live. If you want to come here and relocate and come to a low crime area, Butler County is the place. It's wide open. If you want to go somewhere that has sanctuary cities, go to Cincinnati, go to Dayton. Maybe you can move to Oxford. They got the best free stuff in the world. They give you free everything. They don't care what you do. Just come there and live off their citizens. They vote for that. That's what they get. But not here in Butler County. It's a safe place to go. You can go out and eat with your family, go to movies, you go to places. Very nice place to go and to relocate to and to raise your family, go to schools. Come here. It's very safe. We have some of the best courts in the country. We have the best prosecutor, probably in the United States, Mike Moser, one of the best. Good courts, good prosecution, and good law enforcement, good first responders. Great place to live. Come here. Now, I want to address the issue of the government shutdown, how it affects people. It's sad that we can't have a balanced budget. It affects all of us. And every so often we have government shutdowns. People don't get paid. When elephants stomp, the ants die. We've got to get this government where it needs to be. The holdup, the government right now is one side, the partisan side, the Democrats want illegals to have health care. That's their goal, for illegals to have health care. To the American citizens who don't have health care, you work every day, you pay for your health care, you depend on it, you retire, you sneak into our country illegally. I want to repeat that. You sneak here illegally. They want you to have the best welfare. They want you to have free insurance. It's ridiculous. I hope the Congress and the Senate stay strong and don't open if that's what it's going to take. If that's what the other side wants, is for illegals to have free health care. It's ridiculous. You need to know that. But if you come here, it's safe. And if you come here illegally, it's not good for you. If you're here illegally, it's not a good place to go. You need to go to these sanctuary places. And they're okay with it. You come here, there's a good, strong possibility you can be incarcerated. That's the way it works. And you came to the wrong place if you come to Butler County. Again, I'm up to 400 illegals in my jail. I've had as many as 1,700 in the last 8 months where we've detained and under ICE charges in Butler County, close to 100. So keep in mind, if you're sneaking into the country, or you're already here, if you're selling drugs in this country, period, not a good place to come. The drugs are coming in from China to Mexico to the open borders of the United States. The southern border is closed. The northern border, which is Canada, is open. The Canadians won't stop. We have people that are being trafficked here in our communities, and you never hear anything about that. People are being killed in our communities. Fentanyl is killing people in the state of Ohio. They're killing, I think it's 5,000 a year, and we don't hear anything about it. Please pay attention to the people you support. And if you support people that are out there fighting to keep you safe and keeping this county protected and get the illegals out, tell them how much you support them. And for those of you that protest and whine and cry, hey, good luck to you too. Hey, you can come and whine and cry and protest. It means this to me. I've been elected 6 times, and I get the most votes on every election. So I must be doing something right. We have protests here. So hey, it happens. Good luck. This is a great place to live, great community. Enjoy yourselves. Pay attention to where you go. Pay attention to the exits. These are crazy times. Watch when you go places. Educate your kids. Educate yourself. Have a great weekend. Have a safe weekend. When you see first responders, police, fire, life squad, military, tell them how much you appreciate it. Thank you, and God bless.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree on one thing. The business of we have the best judges, we have the best prosecutor, we have the best law enforcement. It's debatable. That's highly debatable. I've seen some real sketchy shit as of late, and I don't like it. So, yeah, that's up for debate. Anyway, he's got a point. I mean, these individuals in these towns and these cities, again, that become sanctuary cities, they are the dumbest people on the face of the planet. But it's going to be real tough to be a sanctuary city when you have no federal money. And when the DOJ and the state AG's office, they start to put cases against these individuals, again, there's no sovereign immunity for things like this. There just isn't. They can be communists all they want. They can circle the wagons all they want. But if you violate, again, federal law, or at the very least, you violate executive orders, that's not a good look. You can act tough all you'd like, but it's not going to work out in the end. So, with that said, again, it's not the only place where this is, of course, occurring. This is happening in lots of places across the United States, but this area locally just happens to be one of them. Speaking of, again, corrupt police departments and corrupt police officers, not to mention school teachers as well. This was from the Journal News, the local Tri-County newspaper in the area where I live. Substitute teacher, former officer among human trafficking operation arrests in Southwest Ohio. It says 9 people from Southwest Ohio, including an area substitute teacher and a former police officer, have been arrested and charged as a part of a statewide human trafficking operation. Wait a minute. People in the education business and people in law enforcement wouldn't child traffic? They wouldn't human traffic? That's impossible. Pedophiles only come out at nighttime. Police officers, rescue cats out of trees. There's no possible way they can engage in such crime. I mean, these are some of the retards that live around here. They actually believe things like that. It's nuts. Of course these people are wrapped up in these kinds of crimes. Of course police officers and police departments and school districts are tied at the hip with one another when it comes to illegality. That happens all the time too. In this particular instance, there were 9 individuals who were arrested, and it says of those, a Curvin Jackson and a Nicholas Walls each pled guilty and were sentenced to 60 days in jail, with 57 of those days suspended on the condition of having no criminal offenses within a year and staying off of the property of Beechwood Station for 2 years. Beechwood Station is in the area of restaurants, stores, and hotels along Miller Lane and Benchwood Road near Interstate 75 in Butler Township. So let me get this straight. They were sentenced to 60 days in jail with 57 of those days suspended. They did 3 days in jail for soliciting child trafficking. Again, they've got this chalked up to misdemeanor count of solicitation. And they do 3 days. That's it. But Richard Jones wants us to believe that we have the best judges and prosecutors around. You have got to be kidding me. There has to be a law that changes in this state. That if you solicit sex from a minor or trafficking of a minor or any human being, you do at least 10 years in jail. At least. And that's putting it mildly. For me, it would be a wood chipper. That's the sentence. Instant wood chipper. Fertilize the farmland around here. Just instant gone. Bang. Done. Nope, not here. 3 days in jail. It says Benchwood Station. I already said that, sorry. In addition to soliciting charges, the Ohio Attorney General's office said that McKee and Taylor allegedly both tried to sell fentanyl to undercover officers and that Walls had psilocybin mushrooms when he was arrested. Book 'em and cook 'em. As far as the teacher goes, this Curvin Jackson, probably not white, identified himself as a substitute teacher in the Trotwood-Madison School District. In a statement, Trotwood-Madison Superintendent A. Marlon A. Howard, also not white, confirmed Jackson was a substitute at their middle school and said that, quote, the moment we learned of this situation, Jackson was fired and banned from all district property. I bet if you did an internet search on this guy before he became a substitute, you'd find something highly suspicious. But see, they don't do that around here. We do a FBI background check, a BCI check, and then, well, if your fingerprints come back clean, then everything must be dandy. Everything must be just fine. It goes on. It says, Howard said that there is no information that any student or staff member at the school was impacted by the arrest. He added that Jackson passed a thorough vetting process. Yes, I'm sure he did. Before he was hired, and the district was launching an internal investigation, which will amount to nothing. What are they going to do? Blame themselves? Hell, Talawanda hired a pedophile. They hired a guy to be their director of student services, Dr. Joseph A. Hall of Montgomery County, Ohio, who solicited sex from a 17-year-old. I mean, come on, people. It's called the internet. Look around a little bit. Spend a day on there. You'll find all you need. It says Jackson has an active 1-year educational aid permit from Trotwood-Madison School, as well as a 1-year general substitute teaching license, according to the Ohio State's Board of Education. The former officer, a Wapakoneta police chief, Calvin Schneider, that's his real name, confirmed Vogel was an officer with their department for 6 years, from April 2006 to October 2012. He said that though he was not a supervisor during that time, he could not recall any disciplinary issues with Vogel. The chief said that Vogel left the department on good terms and added, quote, we are all shocked at the report, unquote. I'm sure you are. Speaking of being shocked, but not really. Remember last week when I brought up the story of the local Lakota school district school teacher that was having sex with a 17-year-old student when he was a staff member within the building? This individual was arraigned last week, and I talked with an individual who was inside the courtroom, who is well-versed in the legal system. You can take a guess as to what profession that might be. And they were in the court when this individual was being arraigned and talking around and asking around a few questions. And wouldn't you know it, he ended up saying to me that everybody seemed to know exactly what this individual and this student were doing when they were working, when this teacher was working within that Lakota school building. That it was a quote unquote open secret, which means it's not a secret at all. People knew and no one was reporting anything. People suspected and they didn't report anything. Does this happen in the education business? No, it doesn't. The moment that anybody even suspects something, they always do the right thing and report it immediately. Said no one with a brain. That's not what happens in the education business. Everybody puts their heads down, all the ostriches put their heads in the sand, and everybody goes about their daily business like nothing bad is ever happening. It's ridiculous. As far as the investigation of this entire thing is concerned, it goes on. It says these arrests were part of a nationwide, or a statewide rather, effort called Operation Next Door. According to the Ohio attorney Dave Yost, the operation included more than 100 law enforcement agencies and arrests 135 people. The vast majority of arrests were Johns, quote unquote, or people trying to buy sex. In our area, the investigation was led by the Miami Valley Human Trafficking Task Force, composed of the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, Oakwood Police Department, Butler Township Police Department, Dayton Police Department, Homeland Security Investigations, and Adult Parole Authority. It says Montgomery County Sheriff Rob Streck said in a statement, quote, "Human trafficking will not be tolerated in our community. This statewide operation is an important step in identifying victims and holding perpetrators accountable. We remain committed to preventing this crime, supporting survivors, and ensuring justice for those affected." Yes, time will tell on all of that. Attorney General Yost said Operation Next Door was named to highlight the proximity and prevalence of human trafficking. Too often, we are lulled into the false narrative that these crimes happen only in the shadows. This is simply not true. Human trafficking occurs in plain sight and unfortunately may even be fueled by your coworkers or neighbors, unquote. Yes. Including people in law enforcement and the education business. All of the time. Unbelievable. But it isn't unbelievable. The only thing that shocks me is that people are not learning. That it does not matter what profession you are in. It doesn't make you innocent of anything. That's impossible. A police officer would never. Are you kidding me? People who gravitate toward positions like that, positions of influence and or the perception of power or an ability to be untouched, so to speak, that alone should be enough suspicion for individuals to look at them as being the ones that are first and foremost guilty of something. That should be the case. Those should be, again, the positions and the people that people look at suspiciously and say, well, you wear a badge, or you're around children all day long. There might be an issue there. What do you know that you're not sharing? Again, people are far too trusting, and they aren't learning. But many people are, which is good. Distrust is a good thing because it keeps people on point. It keeps people where they need to be. It keeps people sharp. It keeps them vigilant. It's not a bad thing. Now, with that aside here, into jab news just very quickly. Speaking of a lack of vigilance and the chickens coming home to roost. I don't want to twist this knife too much because I don't necessarily wish this individual any ill will, let alone the pain that comes from it. However, I want to be objective about this because I have no choice. Take emotion out of the situation and just look at it objectively. Apparently, Dr. Jordan Peterson, of book fame and lecture fame, former Toronto University, if I'm not mistaken, professor of anthropology and history and what have you, psychology, my apologies. This individual, again, has been in the hospital for a great deal of time, specifically regarding a swath of ailments that his daughter, Michaela Peterson, on X is chalking up to being mold exposure as a result of working in a basement of a family member that had mold in it. Now, I don't buy that in the slightest. Dr. Jordan Peterson took the COVID shots. Admittedly so. In fact, if you get on Michaela Peterson's X account and you scroll down just a little bit, there's a 6-minute video of her discussing some of this, of course, leaving out the COVID shots altogether. But then you start to read the comments and people are like, okay, it's COVID related. He took the COVID shots. Again, back in the day during the whole COVID tyranny, quote unquote, he openly said, hey, I wear my mask, I do my part, I took the shots so that we can get out of this bloody mess. Well, you shouldn't have done that. And he's also, again, been on camera openly admitting that he shouldn't have taken the shots. Again, sepsis is one of the major symptoms as a result of taking the shots. And he has had sepsis and was in the ICU for a great deal of time, is no longer in the ICU, but is still hospitalized. Here's what Michaela Peterson, his daughter, said on X, said, quote, hey, as you know, @Jordan Peterson has been really sick. A lot of people have been asking for updates, so here's one. He's recovering slowly day by day, but I won't lie, it's slow and scary. He won't be back for another few months at least, probably longer. We're not entirely sure what's going on, but it looks like possibly severe CIRS and a lot of bad luck. Or we're getting spiritually attacked, or both. Again, it's a lot of deflection, a lot of excuse making. It's just called prion disease. It's COVID shots. It's a compromised immune system. It's ruined DNA. It says, to be perfectly honest, they said, I think a lot of this is spiritual. My newborn, Audrey, almost died of heart failure for no reason in June. Dad got sick and came to stay with us in July, then needed a hospital, and the same day he went to the hospital by ambulance, my newborn turned blue again at home for a different reason, not heart-related, and went a different hospital by ambulance within 3 hours of each other. It's been one thing after another in an otherworldly type of way. In the meantime, we'll be going full force with @Peterson Academy and keeping his message across his brand alive while he recovers, not letting demons get in the way of that. Prayers are much appreciated. Ephesians 6:12. Again, I'm not wishing ill on the man. I'm just saying that the deflection and people's powers of rationalization are limitless. It's COVID shots. That's it. It's straight up COVID shots. He's at the very least double jabbed, if not 3 times jabbed. Babies have weaker immune systems and are more prone to electromagnetism. The baby might be jabbed. Michaela Peterson might be jabbed. If a baby is around somebody who's sick and jabbed, then they're going to get sick. Babies are dead from being around the jabbed. And the baby isn't jabbed, and the parents of the baby aren't jabbed. But again, children are dead from being around the jabbed, even though they aren't. Again, the comments are mixed. People are, again, they're sending well wishes, which is 100% fine. I send them well wishes also. But at the same time, it's like, don't deflect. Take accountability for what this is. Chew some nicotine gum. Take detox baths. Expecting to actually receive any kind of legit help within a Canadian hospital, I think is a bit short-sighted here. It says the following, one of the comments below, it says 70% immune system is in the gut. Reach out to some doctor, please. What causes CIRS? CIRS typically develops after exposure to biotoxins, biological toxins produced by living organisms. Again, it says the following, mold and mycotoxins from water-damaged buildings, Lyme disease, and other tick-borne illnesses. cyanobacteria from harmful algae blooms, dinoflagellatis, no way I got that right, from red tide events, and certain spider bites. Again, how about being injected with a biological weapon? I mean, again, not trying to make a joke out of it, but, it could be that simple. Again, CIRS is chronic inflammatory response syndrome, after all. Well, that's, again, what sepsis is. Sepsis is a multi-organ, multi-body system inflammatory response. It's a cytokine storm. It's inflammation of T cells and spike proteins and the metal that's inside of his body as a result, again, of taking these shots. Sorry, that's just what it is. But this is still happening. This is still impacting these people. Again, there was also a fetal nurse who was both prenatal and birthing nurse, as it goes, I suppose. And she, again, I put a video of her out on Gab, and in the last war video, she was saying the exact same thing regarding newborns. She was saying in our hospital, we would see 4 dead newborns right after birth all year long. She goes, now it's 4 a week. Again, that's not accidental. This is COVID shot related. This is vaccination related. And until people wake up to this, do not be surprised that this is the case. This is what is happening. This is what is going on. We're coming up on 5 years of the first shot rollout. November 2020. That's when they first started coming out. Of course, people were getting sick in 2019. And they didn't know why. They were saying it's a more severe flu. Well, did you take the flu shot? Were you around people who took the flu shot? Back then. People just have to stop doing it. They have to stop taking shots. There are exemptions all over the internet. No one is forced to take any of these shots. Fill out an exemption. Send them to wherever you need to send them to attend whatever thing you want to attend. And then do your best, again, to stay away from individuals who are jabbed. Because, again, you'll likely increase your own immune system. But there's nicotine. And people that use tobacco products typically are not ill. It's been proven, again, to destroy a lot of the nanotech that's inside of people's bloodstreams after they take these shots. Rather interesting revelation over the last 5 years, but it's true. Ample proof. And straight nicotine, of course. And notice, again, the variety of nicotine products and straight nicotine products that exist in stores these days. I don't think that's an accident either. It's almost like a soft disclosure, hey, here's your cure right here. Or here's something that can certainly treat your ailment to some extent. But again, this is going to continue to roll out. People are going to continue to get sick. And the individuals, again, that you're familiar with, certainly these high-profile public figures, yeah, if they participated in all of this, well, the consequences for them aren't going to be any different than anybody else. Again, not to end on a sour note, it's just this is what we predicted all those years ago. This is exactly, again, what we were led to. This is what the research stated. This is what the objective, non-emotional individual was able to look at and digest. And, we tried to warn people. But some people capitulated, which is too bad. Okay. Thanks for listening as always. More updates this week. I'll catch you on Wednesday. Thanks for listening. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.